All right, what's up, breakers and burners? This is Steven and Ryan from Phantology, and we have a special guest. This time we have Mike from Mike's Book Reviews over on YouTube, and we are way excited to deliver to you this review of The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie, which came out a little more than a week ago, not too long ago, so still fairly recent. Hopefully we're kind of riding the hype wave here a little bit with this review. So how's it going, guys? I really love this book. I'm assuming you guys had really positive opinions as well, and I think we're excited to get into this one.
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about it too. You didn't have me on your last review of the A Little Hatred, so I'm excited to join you again.
And anytime I get a chance to talk about Joe Abercrombie, I'm going to do it. So yeah, besides Red Country, I've liked everything that the guys wrote so far. So yeah, heck yeah.
And didn't you say, Mike, that that Abercrombie and First Law was your favorite series?
It is my favorite modern fantasy series. Yes, even over Stormlight Archive. I know that a lot of people get blown away by that, but I think that those are such two very different series that it's kind of sad. But yes, my favorite modern fantasy series is the First Law.
Okay, so if you've just randomly tuned into this episode and you have no idea what's going on, then there's a great recommendation for you to go read the series. But maybe don't start with this one. I would say go back several books and start with his earlier series, because one thing that you'll see in this book and in this series is he calls back to things that have happened in previous books like crazy, and you're going to miss stuff if you're not pretty well versed in what's going on. But I think it's great because he does it so like low and under the radar that when you can pick up on it, there's so many little Easter eggs that make you feel smart.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like I've missed some of those, but thanks to our Discord, I've been able to pick up on a lot more of them than I would have normally.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me all the time, hey, do I have to read the standalone books before I read the sequel trilogy? And I'm like, well, you don't have to, but it's kind of like the Cosmere. If you read the whole thing, you catch a lot more stuff that you wouldn't before, especially with this book, because I felt like there was a lot of name drops to the heroes and Best Served Cold in this one. So I think that you should definitely. Also, they're awesome books, so you should read them. Yes.
Yeah. Do I have to? It's more like, do I get to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yes, you can. Yeah, and not even just events, but just like the way he writes. He'll call back to the quotes, the way people are speaking. They're very much like little Joe-isms that get thrown in that you've seen in previous books. So the more you read, the more awesome it is, because you're just picking up on more and more of these things, and you feel more and more immersed into this universe. So as we get started here, if you like what Phantology is doing, you can find more episodes online at www.phantologybooks.com. Check out our social media at Phantology Books, hop on Discord and chat with us. There's a few different ways to let us know that you like or don't like what we're doing. And Mike, if you want to just tell people who you are and where people can find you, and now is the time.
Well, my name is Mike, and I am that thing that they've called a booktuber now all of a sudden. I never knew this was a thing like about a year and a half ago until I accidentally became one by just recording my thoughts on Wheel of Time as I was reading through that. But my channel on YouTube, obviously just search Mike's Book Reviews. It's really a channel where I encourage discussion, because I feel like we've gotten away from being able to talk about differences of opinion as a people, as a whole. So I like to encourage that, say, this is my opinion. I encourage you not only to disagree with me, but let's talk about it, and we can still be pals afterwards if we disagree. And that's pretty much it. I review everything fantasy, sci-fi, horror. Don't really touch much else, but I feel like that's a nice little niche got going there. And the channel has seen like significant growth over the course this year, hitting about 25,000 here probably in October. Subscribers. So, hey, I'd love to see you there.
Yeah, you always put out great videos. I think my favorite was your reaction video to changes, where you filmed yourself reading and then had some nice facial expressions at some of those big moments.
I usually don't do the reaction thing unless the people really, really want me to do it. I'm real big about it, as I say, giving the people what they want. Everyone wanted me to do that. And then even Jim Butcher saw it and said how much he enjoyed it. So that really was like, okay, that was a good decision on my behalf.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Anytime we get like an author retweet or anything, yeah, we're pumped for that. So speaking of big reactions, I mean, I'm guessing a similar video towards the end of this book might have garnered some similar levels of excitement because the ending was pretty awesome. There was a ton going on. The full the whole last like 200 pages, I'm guessing 200 pages, was nonstop, reveals left and right, big things going on. This one was awesome, so I'm excited to get into it. And I should maybe say like now's the time. So if you haven't read the book yet, we're talking spoilers here. So go back and read it. Read A Little Hatred. Read Abercrombie's other stuff. So to start off, let's talk about characters, because I think even though there's a whole lot of, there is a lot to like in all of Abercrombie's books, and in terms of plot, in terms of themes, whatever. But I think at the heart of it, these are books about really great characters that even though you might not necessarily like them as people, they are so well realized and so they have so much depth to them. And so I want to talk about these characters. So we have 7 viewpoint characters: Sabine, Orso, Ricka, Leo, Vic, Clover, and Broad. And let's go through and talk about them. I want to hear your guys' takes on them, pros, cons, whatever. And then at the end of this little character segment, let's go through and rank which characters are our favorite, like 1 to 7, top to bottom. Sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so character number 1, my favorite character from the first book. I'm not going to spoil what might have changed with my rankings in this book, if at all. But my favorite character from Little Hatred was Sabine. And this might have been because I probably had a minor, at least minor, like maybe larger than minor crush on Sabine, because she's the most beautiful and composed woman, and she's ruthless and gets her way. So Sabine in this book, I thought really had an opportunity to grow. And what did you guys think? Like, was she able to? What directions did she go for you?
Yeah, I think that Sabine certainly changed a lot. As far as I think in the first book, the main driver of her character is, I think, her desire for power, and maybe that's tied to Orso a lot. And whereas in this book, she still wants power, but now she realizes that she can't get it through Orso. So she's turning to alternative methods of getting that power. And my opinion of her decreased a little bit in this book. I don't like
Same a
her.
little bit. Yeah.
Maybe that's because of the actions she takes against other characters, specifically Orso. I think that um, I like Orso a lot more now than I did at the beginning, and her kind of going along with Leo's rebellion was a little bit frustrating for me to read, but I mean, Joe Abercrombie pulled it off in such a good way that I can't even be mad at the end of the book.
Look, obviously, I love Sabine a lot, the first one, because of who her dad is. Let's be honest. I mean, that's the whole reason I'm interested in that character from day one, is because of who her dad is, or sorry, the dad that raised her. And I will say that there were 2 things in this book that kind of like got me down a little bit on her. First, she was really shitty with her dad in this one, with Glockta. And I didn't like that. I was like, that's my dude. Stop it. Stop talking to him like that. And
Yeah, that
second,
conversation that they had after the wedding.
he's
that
like,
time,
you were my greatest achievement. And she's like, well, you suck. Anyway, I'm just like, I thought she was talking about like wheeling him off the edge of the. I was like, what are they doing here? But no, it was the whole thing with her acting as if she didn't really have a choice. This is her only option, is to go along with this rebellion. Yo, she is more calculating than Cersei Lannister. She makes Cersei Lannister look like a Disney princess in this. She is backroom wheeling and dealing the whole time, and it's all because she wants to be queen. Don't let it get twisted. She just wants to be queen. Don't. Oh well, I only have this choice, or else we all get burned for it. No, yeah, you wanted this, please.
Yeah, when she's spying on Isher and Leo, and there's this great sequence where it takes you inside of her head, and you get a look at what she's thinking and how quickly she goes through all of these things. It was almost like she just went for it so quickly. She didn't consider
it almost
alternatives.
Like her idea, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I mean, she doesn't only double cross Orso when she goes along with Leo and Isher, but she also double crosses her dad, which is equally something that at the first book I would not have been able to see her doing that. So it's very surprising.
And it's not like she really told Leo the whole truth either. I mean, is there anyone that she doesn't double cross here?
Yeah, I mean, she's there with Stour making those deals there behind Leo's back too. So yeah, so she's like I said, she makes Cersei look like a Disney princess by comparison. That's just how manipulating she is.
In addition to that, you think from the first book and maybe like the first half of this one that she's just so calculating, so brilliant. She's never going to make mistakes, and all of everything she touches just turns to gold. And she is incredibly intelligent. But I feel like she makes some large blunders. One of them being sending Leo off to Styria on his own, thinking that he was going to secure this diplomatic tie with Japa. Like, what the heck? That was doomed to fail from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think that was very uncharacteristic of her because before then she had, like with Isher, she kind of sends Leo away when it comes down to making some of the hard decisions that she doesn't trust he can make on his own. So it was a little strange that she sent Leo off on his own to Styria, and of course what happened is he ended up botching the deal with Jappo.
While I was confused while she did that, I loved it because, you know, not only did it have the crossover with Best Served Cold going to the same brothel and stuff like that, but I just like that Leo and Orso are basically standing there talking to each other. They have no idea that it's each other. I don't want to jump the gun here, but that was just one of my favorite parts. And finally getting to see Jappo was pretty cool. And he kind of reminded me of Klaus from Umbrella Academy. I don't know if anybody's watched that. Just
Okay, yeah.
Completely quirky and weird. And I loved it. I thought it was really cool to see. Although I do hope that someday we get to see Mansa again. Anyway, that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, will we see her? I guess we might be jumping the gun a little bit, but
sorry,
but
the
whole
first law stuff, I get all over the place.
Yeah, no, you're fine, but the whole Styrian conflict, I have some thoughts there. So let's get into that once we kind of move past the character segment because you're right, there's a whole lot to unpack in that, and the whole thing in Cardades and the callback to Best Served Cold and the characters all being there and not knowing, that was awesome. Love that scene. Okay, one more thing on Savine. Is it possible that the baby could be Orso's and not Leo's? And if that was the case, like, would it matter? Do you guys think there's like any chance that this becomes a thing?
It's Joe Abercrombie. It's most definitely Orso's baby.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. In the book, everybody's very quick to put down, especially Savine. When Leo asks her, "Is it even my baby?" She's just very quick to put it down. Maybe a little bit too quick, you know, like maybe she's trying to eliminate the doubt not only in Orso's mind but in her mind as well.
Yeah, they were literally together. I mean, she was with both of those guys within like days of each other. What I mean,
yeah.
And I don't think they could just like go to the supermarket and get a DNA test or something like that. But still, yeah, the fact that I think she doesn't even want to consider because that loses any ability that she has. Obviously, she knows the truth about Orso and her relation, so she's like to pursue that power. So she thinks that Leo's her only avenue to power. So of course it's your baby, you fool. Yeah.
So that's my question, Mike. You say, yeah, they can't get a DNA test. So if the baby is Orso's, what does it matter? Or how are they ever going to know? I feel like if it's Orso's, that revelation needs to come with some meaning to it. And that's kind of where I start to scratch my head like, okay, it's Orso's, so what?
I think it'll be kind of like Jappo. If you have no idea if it's Shivers or I can't even remember the guy that Rogant. I think it was Rogant. Like you don't even know. Joe's just going to let you just try to decide that on your own.
Until the little scene here, right, where we do get that answer.
Baez seems to be pretty keen in discerning those types of things, and the fact that he seemed interested in Savine in these two books.
Good point. Yeah, Baez does have maybe one of his spells is a DNA test.
And fun fact, if that is Orso's, so if you consider the fact that King Jezal was a bastard, consider the fact that Savine was a bastard, this baby would be a bastard's bastard.
That's the way that Baez likes to keep it, I think, and they should be able to be in control the whole time.
He always has a plan B, you know, if you're not going to do what I'm going to tell you, then I'm going to kick you out and put this other person in power.
Baez is another character that maybe later on, let's talk some Baez. So On to Orso, and let me start off on Orso. Why did he not look at Savine towards the end and say, "Is this my child that I can see in your pregnant belly?" Like, why was that not something that Orso immediately threw at her? I thought that was a little bit strange, but I mean, that's a minor thing for Orso. Overall, I loved Orso in this one. I thought he was awesome. I thought he learned very quickly, and he was very smart. And also, like the scene in at the end of the battle where he was strangely calm and wasn't worried about being crushed or anything. Like he really seemed like a good king, which is weird because no one seems like they're good at anything they're trying to do.
Yeah. Talk about subverting expectations. I mean, Orso is set up in a way in the beginning that I didn't like him really much at all because of he's just kind of like a playboy, doesn't really take any responsibility for himself. There's a scene in the beginning where there's this like the very young 15 or 16-year-old girl who's about to be hanged, and he's thinking to myself, well, I could put an end to this, and then he kind of gets distracted by something else, and then hears the rope
Mm-hmm.
snap in the background or come taut, and there goes her life. But he when he's put in a position finally that something is demanded of him, he rises to the occasion and really throws off the shadow of his father, I guess, who is a mediocre king at best. And the funny part is that he's really doing his best to become a good king, and as good as he's tried, things come up that really don't put him in a favorable light with both the nobility and the people. So nobody likes him for his actions.
I think that Orso in book one was kind of one of my least favorite of the new characters. And it's amazing because he was my favorite by the end of this one. And I think because of book one, I felt like Joe was just kind of repeating the same Giselle thing. I was like, okay, this is just, Apple didn't fall far from the trees. He's just like Giselle, except he's not as good with a sword. But what is he good with? I'm like, he's good with a sword, but not, the one you actually fight with, apparently. So I think that what I liked about this is he's not the fighter that his dad was, but he appears to be way better at diplomacy, because there's that scene in the tent before the battle with him and Leo, and he just absolutely owns the entire room with his diplomacy, and it just completely blew me away because I didn't expect it. I thought, well, he seems like he's got some ideas, but I think something that's going to bite this in the ass is you have all the grown-ups in this book telling all the kids, hey, don't trust Baez, and none of them listening. So that's going to come back, and it's not going to be happy. So I think in that part, it may end the same way it ended with Giselle and Baez. We'll see.
Yeah, how many times are we going to just disrespect Baez before the dude shows up and makes them pay? Because that was the lesson that we've learned from all of the other Abercrombie books. And repeatedly, like you said, Mike, like all the grown-ups are saying, hey, don't mess with Baez. And here we have everyone messing with Baez and burning down Valentin bulk offices and stealing stuff. And it's like, at some point, the shoe's going to fall, and then there's going to be a reckoning to pay.
That's why when everyone said, oh, Baez has got to be the Weaver, I'm like, he's not burning down. And it's not like he needs to hide. He needs to, he'll just throw it right out there who he is. He isn't going to hide anything. I was like, he's not burning down his own banks. Come on, that's stupid. So I never suspected Baez was the Weaver.
Another thing that we'll have to talk about later as well. So past Orso, who it sounds like we all really liked in this one after a rocky start to the series. So Rika was interesting to me in this one. I thought the first half of the book, Rika, I was like, what is going on with this character? And then halfway through, after the whole thing with Kara happened and all of that, and she showed up and she was crazy looking, and then she was awesome after that. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that you have the two characters. I don't know. You have Orso and Leo, who are a little bit different, where they both kind of inherit their positions of power, and people have totally different opinions of them, and they both kind of make themselves, I guess, something of themselves totally different from what like Orso's father. He was just not. He's a mediocre king, not that great at diplomacy, and he kind of flips things around for himself. whereas Leo, his mom is just this master strategist at battle, has done political maneuvering, including making a deal with the devil by himself to get themselves after Leo's grandpa's treason. Now Leo's back as the Lord Governor of England, and he doesn't really do well for himself, so he kind of goes downhill. And Rika, she's kind of on the same side as Leo, whereas she takes over after the Dogman passes away, and she's doing some political maneuvering herself, some double crossing to make sure that she's on top. Whereas I think the Dogman, he was a really good guy, but he was very straightforward. He wasn't really a fan of treachery, but in the world of first law,
the Dogman is like a craw. He's like a straight edge.
Yeah, but yeah, in the first law, you gotta be at least familiar with some sort of treachery if you want to move up in the world. And Rick has got that.
Now, while I always expect a lot of death in a Joe Abercrombie book, I'm not gonna lie, I needed to take a moment when Dogman passed. It's like, because you're taking these originals from me here. It's the 2 books in a row now. It's hurting. You know, you took this all from me. Now you took Dogman from me. So I guess that means our old, what do they call them? Old sticks in this one. I don't think that, he's going to be long for this world. But as far as Rika goes, basically, I know what it's like to trip on acid now, reading that chapter about this hasn't happened yet. Very clearly, Joe was maybe eating some mushrooms or something that night. But I liked her growth in that I didn't see the big twist with her at the end coming. I didn't. I thought she was just going to be, like her father and just kind of be like, let's just mind our business and let's just, hold a Ufrith here. That's good enough for us. But she's ready to take it. But I'll say, and again, this might be some of my original trilogy bias coming through here. Shivers is wonderful in this. I think this is the most humanizing we've gotten Shivers. What is this? It's like his 7th appearance in the series. And I think this is the most humanized he's been in the entire thing, about how much he really cares for this girl. And I won't lie, I was scared when he was in the circle. I was scared. I was like, I know he's supposed to be like now that Logan's apparently, dead or gone or wherever, he's supposed to be the best in all of the circle of the world in the circle. But I was still, I kind of got scared because I know Joe, but I really like Shivers. I know we're talking about Rika here, but I really like Shivers in this book, of course.
A lot of good Northmen. I'm with you. I think both of you guys, I know Ryan's mentioned this and sounds like you agree, Mike, that Dogman funeral, that was emotional, man.
Yeah, that was rough.
I don't know if I actually cried, but I was maybe like adjacent to crying. Like there were some really strong emotional things there. And Dogman was a great guy. Maybe one of the best guys we've seen in all of the first
the last
books.
one out of that original group.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned that I feel like Dogman had probably one of the best endings in the Joe Abercrombie universe so far. He died in a time of relative peace and
among family in his own bed. Yeah, that's very rare in his world.
So,
I mean, just in time, as soon as and this is actually a line from the funeral. It's like a way that you can tell how good of a man someone was, how strong of a leader was. Look at what happens right after they die. And immediately after Dogman dies, everyone is trying to get whatever little piece of the puzzle they can.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give myself props because I saw the Rika betrayal happening. I predicted, at least I predicted enough to throw out a theory on this. And I'm not opposed to throwing out theories, which are typically wrong. But in this case, I did guess that Rika was the one that wrote the note to to Orso about the betrayal that was happening. It made sense because of her connection with Orso. And it also noted that the writing was kind of childlike, which I just ended up deciding it was Rika. And so I did see that one coming, but I thought it was awesome when it happened.
I was way off. I thought it was Japo. I just keep wanting Stereo to get involved so bad that I think that's what kind of led me there.
Yeah.
It's gotta be next book, right?
It was pretty, I think, it wasn't that big of a surprise to me that she ended up double crossing Leo. What was the biggest surprise was when Clover himself orchestrated the
definitely
massacre of sorry, I said Leo, but I meant Stour. Of Stour's of like him and his henchmen. They didn't kill Stour, but they certainly overthrew the balance of power in the north right then.
And I just want to say I'm glad that Black Calder lived. That's all.
Yeah.
For now, I
For
mean,
now, yeah.
another
It's,
guy
it's,
who
it's
might
first
not.
flaw. It's not going to be forever, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Clover thing, I'm with you, Ryan. I thought that was pretty surprising. So is every book just going to end with Clover turning the tables on someone really dramatically?
I keep waiting for it to be revealed that he's someone that we've heard of before, but you actually get his, I can't recall, I put it in my notes somewhere, but we actually get his real name in this
Jonas
one, or
Jonas
what it used to be.
Steepfields, I think.
Yeah.
Is that?
So I was like, I don't believe that I've heard that name before. For some reason, I kept thinking it was going to be one of those characters from the Heroes or something like that. But yeah, that was very surprising to me, since you're in, his head the whole time, and it seems like he's building his own little group of named men here. It seems like, okay, cool, we're going to have us another little band like this, and I didn't see that coming at all. So props to Joe. That's 2 books in a row now that the Joris chapter has been the one that got me.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty sad when he killed Wonderful, but
Yeah, well, that's the worst.
yeah.
Yeah, by the end of Little Hatred, I was done with Clover. I hated him for killing Wonderful. And now I'm back on the boat a little bit with Clover because he took down Stour.
That's
And
Joe's
Stour is someone
superpower,
who's pretty easy to dislike. Yeah.
Joe
Well,
takes an irredeemable character and redeems him, and takes the best character and makes him an absolute scumbag. He's just awesome at it.
Do you guys think that Jonas would have double-crossed Stour if Stour hadn't made him kill Wonderful?
Good question.
He
I guess it depends on how
definitely
much he believes
thinks
in Rika.
back. He definitely thinks back to killing Wonderful after double crossing Stour. So
Yeah, I mean, even a Little Hatred. I mean, like his earliest chapters, all he can think is that this kid's a tit. So I mean, I don't think he ever really wanted to support him. So yeah, the fact that Stour was just such a jerk. Yeah, sure, I could see that.
Okay, let's talk some Leo. Leo is dumb and he is bigoted, but he's also like the nicest guy. Leo's a crazy character. Overall, I'm not a huge Leo fan, but reading his chapters are always exciting. Something's going to happen.
Yeah, I mentioned that Leo kind of does the opposite thing of Orso, whereas Orso, you start off with a low opinion of him, and your opinion of him increases as the story continues. Leo, he does the opposite, whereas you really, or at least I was really cheering for him in the beginning with when he's trying to put down this rebellion of Northmen, going against Stour and the Circle. I was really cheering for Leo, but then by the end, just mistake after mistake, like you can just see him being manipulated by Ishur and the members of the Open Council, and just shake your head at all of these actions he makes, to the point where I agree. He's kind of like wears his heart on his sleeve type of guy. He just does what he thinks is the best and honorable, but he's just not a very smart person. And people say it about him a lot, and you can certainly see it in his decisions. And my opinion of him decreased, so that is pretty low towards the end of this book.
You remember in the original trilogy how at first everyone wanted to just like beat the hell out of Giselle because he was just such a prick, and he got better over time. I feel like Leo is going the opposite direction. I really do, and I hate that just how easily he is manipulated in this. It's like this person can whisper in your ear, yeah, we got to do that. The other person will whisper something the opposite. Yeah, we got to do that. He never seems to have an opinion of his own. He's so easily guided, and I don't think it's just because Sabine's just so good at it. Because I mean, Ishur does it. I mean, everybody like everybody except Fenry. Apparently, he listens to everybody except Fenry. But I think what really hurt for me in this book is like, okay, this guy's got the decks decked against him, family history wise. He's from the family of a traitor. I mean, even Glockta in the first book, Glockta, old Glockta, says, hey, it don't matter. You're always just gonna be the grandson of a traitor. So I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be his thing of trying to get out from underneath this family history and seeing him actually repeat that history. And you knew it. Your heart's just breaking the whole time it's happening, because you're like, he just doesn't know how to say no. I don't think that he wanted this. Is he really that mad because Orso kicked him out of the Open Council? I mean, come on, he ain't ready to commit treason over that. So it's just heartbreaking to see.
I felt so bad for him. By the end, he's brutally maimed. I mean, he's missing a leg now, and one of his arms barely works.
Probably never sword fight again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where his character is going to go. I never thought he was actually going to get hung because although Joe kills a lot of characters, he doesn't really kill off the POVs
A lot,
hardly
yeah.
ever. So I didn't think I figured Leo would survive. Who knows what's going to happen in the next book? But yeah, you feel terrible for him by the end. And by the end, he's standing there at the gallows, and all he can say is that he's sorry. And he didn't really. I don't think he ever really had like all that strong of feelings against the Union in terms of like, oh, we need to do this rebellion. He was totally just goaded on. His only real opinion was like, hey, we should do a cavalry charge. I like doing those.
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
wants to fight. Yeah.
Yeah, that battle was a disaster, and you kind of knew that it would be when he wouldn't bring his mom with him or Durand with him. Both people who were, I think, their strong skills were organizing and leading armies, and so yeah, his perspective is after he makes a decision after bad decision in that battle specifically was pretty was pretty sad, but they still almost won the battle. if Orso hadn't have gotten reinforcements, they would have lost.
I would say that battle was really great, though. It was one of my favorite in the series, and if you're just going off body count, it's one of the biggest in the series. So it was really, as much as I hated it, I always loved seeing a good battle in the first Law World.
Yeah, and Abercrombie writes these fighting scenes so great. And I think it goes back to his background as a film editor of sorts. He does some freelance stuff. And a lot of these scenes, I'm thinking like this is some stuff we've seen in like Daredevil, like these one shot, real exciting action scenes where you just like follow the character along for a really long extended period of time and see him just rack up the bodies. Like it's some brutal stuff, but at the same time, it's like, wow, we're right there with
It
them.
seems like him following the person that killed the previous POV character seems to be like a kind of a thing he's getting known for now. I first saw it in the Heroes, and he did it again in Sharp Ends, and he does it twice in this book. And I've heard a lot of people be like, "Oh, it's just kind of a gimmick at this point. It's not as good." As like, but I think it's kind of becoming like his thing, and you can't tell me it's not exciting. It's like, hey, I'm starting to like this character. Oh, they're dead. it's like within like 3 pages, you're starting to get too attached to a character, and then boom, they're dead. So.
I think it really contributes to the feeling of his book, where there's these people that in other fantasy books you kind of consider them to be like insignificant. You have like these huge death tolls. You don't necessarily feel them so much in fantasy books, whereas in Joe's books you feel them as you follow these small people, the little people who, as it just goes back and forth between the sides, and you just feel like their excitement or their terror their surprise as they die in various ways, and it contributes to that grim dark feel for me.
I think it's him to have to just like, I can't kill any of my main characters, so I've got to get some body count going. I've got to satiate this bloodlust I have.
I can't believe people think it's gimmicky, because I think this is a brilliant and unique way that he has, like you said, Ryan, he is taken to writing these chapters so that you get a sense of these are the guys who are really being affected, and it adds to that real dark tone, but in a real humanizing way. It's great. Okay, so let's talk some Vic. So I guess the 4 that we just talked were the 4 that we just talked about, I'm going to say, are our main POV characters. Now we have some 3 more that are somewhat minor main characters, Vic, Clover, and Broad. So let's go to Vic first. And in my notes next to Vic, it just says awesome, period, because she was so smart. Maybe she's smarter than Savine, or at least like in a different way. She's very deceitful. She can play off whatever is going on, and she seems to always kind of do the best for herself. And she had several wins in this book. I really enjoyed the liar chapter where she came in and totally tricked. I mean, Leo's not hard to trick, but Savine as well was quite impressive.
Yeah, she's surprised when she sees that it's both of them, right? Or Leo and Savine, because Savine knows her, but she still just instantly switches character to what she deems to be best to manipulate the situation, and she does it flawlessly, manipulating even so Savine doesn't notice.
She was one of my least favorite in the first book, but in this one, I thought I really like what he did with her, and it's very clear to see she paid attention to who her teacher is, Glockta, because I felt like if Glockta had working legs, this is exactly the type of negotiator he would have been. I can beat you with words, I can beat you by punching you in the face, and I can beat you by money. You know, any way I can do this, I can do it. I'm going to do that. And the stuff that she does in Styria, where she's just trying to get the votes, some of the best political stuff I've seen in modern fantasy. It's too good.
You know, I actually didn't find her that likable of a character. I mean, I agree with you guys that she's just like super competent and like a really good spy.
Well, are any of these characters likable though?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't connect to her as much as I might have connected to like Orso or Rika for some reason. I don't know. It was just maybe.
Oh, she's still one of my least favorite. I'll agree with you there of this group, but I thought she was much improved in this book as compared to the first one.
Yeah.
Maybe you need some background in the camps of England, Ryan, and that would help you connect to her.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it past Joe to do that, and I'm sure it would be very depressing to read.
Hey, I'd read it.
I would too. That's saying something about Joe's writing, right?
All right, so let's talk Clover now. We already kind of jumped the gun on Clover a little bit. What anything more to say other than what his big finale? For me, honestly, like there's not that much more to say about him.
Mm.
Although
he's just the eye to see what's going on in Stour's camp.
Yeah, exactly. And to that end, I don't know if I really love Clover as a character that much because he just doesn't quite have the same level of characterization as these other ones. But also, I think that's purposeful because we can't have 7 main characters. Like some of them do have to be a little more minor.
Yeah, I think that he is a very he does not fit the mold of a normal Northman. So you get like a contrasting views of where Stour is just this bloodthirsty, power-hungry guy. Jonas is just a very clever, I'll switch sides if it means my survival, because you can take your honor and end up in the mud and it's not going to do you any good. At least like if I switch sides, I'll still have my life to cling to. So he's very practical person, and it's kind of funny watching his interactions with Stour a little bit, because at the beginning of the books, Stour is very just kind of sets him to the side. You're just a coward. And at the end of the book, he's what's Stour saying to Jonas on the boat right before Jonas orchestrates mutiny, I guess. He's like, you're going to be well rewarded. He like finally recognizes that I guess Jonas is probably a lot smarter than he gives him credit for, but Jonas ultimately is a little too clever for Stour.
I look at Jonas as kind of like a less likable version of Takomo Casca, in that he'll switch sides for the right price or the right moment. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't bother him any. But I don't know. I think that like I said, he was just kind of like the eyes to see what was going on in Stour's camp, to kind of keep an eye on stuff like that. But again, the ending did surprise me, so I'm interested to see if Joe gives him a little more to do in the next one. But again, I do like that little band of merry people he is putting together. I really enjoyed it, and especially how much he goes into that one girl how thin she can slice the cheese. That is such a weird thing to talk about. I just assumed that Joe was hungry while he was writing this. That's all I can say.
There's so many little minor things, and if you look at the back of the book where he has like the descriptions of all the people.
Talk about the guy with a mustache and no beard, and the guy with the beard and no mustache.
And it does say that character's description is very good at slicing cheese thinly.
Yeah. It's weird how books this bleak make you laugh so much. It's so weird, ain't it?
It's the way he writes, like the dark humor and the wit that he's able to just add into like this, the way that he structures sentences and the sarcasm that is present throughout everything. I think it's honestly, I mean, can I say it's my favorite? It's the highest quality writing out there in fantasy in terms of prose.
I think what I
I'm gonna
enjoy
say
about
it.
it, yo, I'm with you, and because I did an interview with John Gwynn, it's a guy that writes The Faithful and the Fallen. He talked about Joe Abercrombie and that, and he said what I like about Joe is you can read a sentence of one of his characters and know who that character is just by reading that sentence because of how well
Oh yeah.
he writes his characters distinctly. And it's like there's one line in here where Vic is dealing with one of those politicians in Styria, and he was like, "I was busy." Yeah, I'm sure you were. He's like, "I was busy fucking," and I'm like, that anybody else writes that line and I'm not laughing out loud. I'm like, who writes this dialogue? He writes it and I can't stop laughing. It's so weird.
Yeah, I was just finishing off a Stormlight Archive binge. I reread all of the books to get caught up for Rhythm of War, and then I switched back to Joe Abercrombie for a little.
Oh, that's a
Quite a shock to
contrast.
the system, isn't it? Because I
It
did
is
it the
shock.
opposite way.
I love Stormlight Archive, and that might be like my favorite fantasy series. But I think I love Joe's writing a lot more than Sanderson. I don't like his stories quite as much as Sanderson and his world building, but I just love Joe's writing.
That's why he's my guy.
So let's so our last character is Broad, Gunnar Broad. Another more minor guy here. He's mostly like the opposite of Clover. He's the boots on the ground guy for the Savine and Rebellion camp, and there are a few minor things that he does, but I don't know. I don't care about Broad quite as much as these other guys.
Yeah, he just reminds me a lot of like a minor version of Logan or Shivers, where both of them have their moments where they're like, I'm going to be a better person, like I'm going to get out of this trouble, but
Yeah.
then they find themselves just eager to get back and punching people in the face, breaking noses, drawing blood, and so I feel like he was a little bit less. I think Joe's just already done it so well with other characters that Broad wasn't that interesting for me to read.
There were times I forgot that Broad was in this book. Like we would go so long for without even hearing from him that I'd almost forgot he was in the book at times. And I was like, besides that, he doesn't really want to do what he's doing, but he doesn't know how to do anything else. And he's going to keep doing whatever he has to do to keep his family fit. Oh, and he wears glasses. Did you guys know he wears glasses? Other than that, I'm just like, I feel like this is just so we have the breakers and burners thing progressing a little bit. I don't get a ton out of the character. And like you said, you already convinced me that Shivers wasn't just, Walmart Logan. I don't think you're going to do it a third time here. So I just look at him as a heavy.
Okay, so in interest of time, let's just kind of quickly go through 1 to 7. Who do you guys think was your best in this one? We'll say, or to the series to this point. I'll give you mine to start off. So I'm going to say number 1 is now Orso. He is past Savine, who I'm still going to put it. I don't know. It might be Vic moving up to number 2. Savine she didn't do very well in this book, to be honest. Like a lot of mistakes, got overly ambitious. I'm going to say Vic number 2, Savine number 3. No. Rika is going to be number 2. Okay, final answer. Savine, Rika, Orso, Rika, Vic, Savine, Leo, I guess, and then Clover, and then Broad.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Orso's my number 1, Rika's my number 2, Sabine's my number 3. Then I'm gonna go with Jonas for my number 4, and maybe Vic number 5, Leo number 6, Broad number 7.
It seems like we all kind of agree on Orso and Rika here.
A little bit,
they
yeah.
definitely had the most growth in this book and the best turns to their character. Savine, while I didn't like some of the things she was doing, I mean, again, that's why I read this series. So of course she's going to be up there. Leo, I think Ryan said earlier that it felt like, you think that this guy's just a dummy, but you always know that's going to be an enjoyable chapter when you pop it over the page and you see it's a Leo chapter. It's always going to be entertaining. And I'm just interested to see where he can go with this in the condition that the guy's in now. And then again, I go with you with Vic, and then kind of Jonas and Broder's kind of interchangeable there for me.
Nice. Okay, so from characters, let's talk some big plot events. Some episodes we do a full thing of like the entire plot. For this one, I just want to cover some plot events that stuck with you guys, like favorite moments. We'll talk. Let's dedicate some time to talking about the final conflict and some of the reveals. But up to that, maybe like in the first two parts, what were some of your favorite parts? I have a few. But I don't know, Mike. What stuck out to you at this beginning of the book?
I read this so fast. I'm trying to remember what was in part 1 and 2. I think I liked at the beginning just that, in the first one, it was like this big reveal whenever the original trilogy characters would come back. And it was like this big, cool moment. And this one, boom, they're just there right from the beginning. And you're seeing that Orso has to just kind of get thrust into this. And he's still, remember like when Giselle had his first closed council meeting and he was thinking he was going to be like in charge and he got slapped down real quick. With this, I think that Orso is going to have to learn that lesson. It's just going to be slower because even they're telling him, hey, it's just politics. And he's like, why? Why can't we change things? And I'm like, oh, you sweet, sweet, sweet summer child. So I think it's just like all the posturing between everybody and seeing that Sabine is in a much different place now than where she was. And then their whole, Fenry and Artie basically still kind of running the kingdom behind the scenes there was really cool making that match because it made sense, right? It made perfect sense. So I think in the first two acts, really, it's just all the politic and all the political posturing. And again, like I said, getting to see things like Vitari again, getting to see things like Shanked again. I love Best Served Cold. That is such a great book. So anytime you got callbacks to that book, I'm going to be really, really into it. So I think it's just, I don't want to say just all of the nostalgic kickbacks or whatnot, because I think that he really does a good job of putting these new characters up front, and the old characters are kind of passing the torch. I appreciate that he could do that. I do feel like it's a waste of resources not using Glockton more than he's using them, but we got one book left. But I think, before all the shit really hits the fan, as you would say, really just him setting the board up until the big explosion.
Mike, I'm getting that you liked Glockta. He seems to be one of your favorite characters.
That's my guy. I mean, I think that you can't think of another character in modern fantasy that is anything like that. I think that's what made this series stand out to me when I first read it. I was like, who is going to make the only guy that kind of gets a happy ending in the story? The cripple who tortures people. So seeing him again, I was excited, and then I was like, he's really. I mean, all of the original trilogy characters were basically cameos in this one. I mean, even Baez only has like that one big scene. So while I want to say I understand he has to pass a torch, it is kind of a struggle for me at times to be like, okay, but you got some of those greatest hits, Joe. Let's use them. But I don't think this is obviously the last that we're going to see of former Arch Lecter Glockta.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. Let's talk Styria now. So Ryan, what did you think of Styria being introduced into the mix? It was right away with Vic and the politicking there, and then again when we go back to Cardates and how awesome that chapter was. Like we said, with Leo and Orso both being there, not recognizing, getting to see Japo for the first time. What do you think? And also Friendly being there, cameo.
I actually didn't notice Friendly. So the first Styria part where Vic is wheeling and dealing, getting some of the scenes kind of bled together a little bit for me. I think that's probably because I was listening to it while I was working on something that was requiring some of my attention. But at first I was like, what? Shanked is just gonna like let her like punch out his knee and then save it, and then I was thinking about it and I was like, that couldn't have been Shanked, and I was like, this must have been a setup by Vic. I was like, oh, that's probably a pretty.
I think any seasoned Abercrombie writer knew that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the Cardates House of Leisure chapter.
Good.
That was phenomenal, and you see like Bremer Dan Gorst.
He's like, oh, I hate this place.
They're like, you want a drink? And he's like, no, I don't want a drink. I'm gonna keep what's about me this time. And meeting Japo, I think that it strongly hints that Japo is the son of Shivers and not Duke Rogot, because the way he's described, I think I don't remember whether it was Leo or Orso looking at him. but they're like, he looks a lot more like a Northman than somebody from Austria.
And the
so
hair,
it's
the
like,
black, the shiny black hair. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Orso because he took his mask off for
Yep.
Orso's visit, and he says he's more pale than a Styrian would look.
And so I think that's so awesome that Shiver's son could be like this king over in Styria, like this person to watch out for. I
Think Shivers will ever meet him? Think we'll ever have a father son? And I'm sure they would never know, but
Yeah,
as the
if
reader,
we
you would
do,
know.
they won't have any idea. But yeah,
do
I
you
could
think
see that.
you think he'll meet up with Monza at some point? I mean,
I
he's always
hope.
twisting that ruby ring that he
Oh
got
yeah,
when
oh
she
yeah.
set him free. And so, I mean, I'm sure he thinks a lot about his time in Styria. And I mean, I don't know, maybe the Union and the North are gonna like have to repel an assault from Styria, because the way that Jappo leaves things with Orso is he's like, Orso's like, how do I know if you can trust me? And Jappo's like, well, you won't know until you don't get a knife in the back from me,
Uh-huh.
or you do get a knife in the back from me. And I was like, dang, this is gonna be interesting.
Well, they've
So
already
they
lost like 3 wars with Styria. I don't think that they're gonna try another one, are they?
Well,
So
yeah, but,
he didn't get a knife in the back. It could have been an opportunity for Styria to
yeah,
come in. They never did.
but I mean, now they're pretty weakened. I mean, a lot of fighting men in the north died, and a lot of Union soldiers died
Uh-huh.
repelling the assault. And we know that the Union is very heavily in debt to Valens and Bulk, more so now because of this war. So things are teetering a bit. I think the
Yeah.
stability in the Union is not as sure as Baez might want it to be.
Oh yeah,
Sulfur's
and
always going to
Weaver
be there.
Pike. Weaver Pike is ready to move his guys in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sulfur is always there trying to offer a deal to anybody who'll listen. He's always offering that credit, ain't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking of sulfur, that's a moment that we
Dude,
have
he
to
was a
talk about.
badass in this, wasn't he?
Yeah, the first Little People chapter where the train, the steam engine explodes,
He just goes
and
Bruce Lee on everybody. Yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
Orso is about to be killed. Sulfur goes full on eater and tears through everyone. I mean, first of all, the way that chapter was structured, where you had the narrative stopped, where it said then like the world stopped or something
The
exploded,
world exploded. Yeah.
and then you got this through everyone's eyes, and up until that event, and the tension was building. It's like, okay, enough already. Just tell me what's happened here. I need to know. And then when you finally do see all of the carnage, and then Sulfur saves Orso, that was a top chapter in the book for sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All doubts about him being an eater were gone. Not that, like, after he says he has a very specific diet, you really weren't in any doubt. But
I thought either Orso or Therese was going to be like the big, like, crazy, shocking kill right there. But hey, Therese gets a happy ending, by the way. She finally gets to be back with her lover now that Glockta's gone.
yeah.
Yeah, she does get a happy ending. I don't know if it's
That's
deserved or
rare in
not.
this series, so you notice it when it happens.
Yeah,
But I mean, they're within Jappo's grasp. You know, if
that's
you
true.
feel like Orso kind of delivered them into his hands, so Jappo could just be like, "Oh, hey, I got your mom. I got your
Ooh,
sister."
that's
Hey, by
true.
the way, did Giselle know Carlo Dan Eider? Because it's weird that he has a daughter named Carlo, right? Unless that's just like a really common name in this land.
He also has a daughter named Cathal, which seems
Yeah, it was a golden
strange.
camp, wasn't it? Yeah.
Because
See,
Yeah.
now we're gonna start going down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry, I'm wrecking
Giselle
your
wasn't in
plan
Goska.
here.
He was in Disgaska, which is where Carlot was, and then he wasn't in Styria after she left, and then she went far
Yeah,
west.
he was already the king by the time of Red Country, so yeah.
And also, I'm pretty sure that Glokta made Therese promise to have 4 children for the kingdom, and only 3 have been mentioned. I mean, Savine doesn't count as hers, so I don't know. Maybe there's another secret child lurking somewhere.
Well, it's Giselle. I mean, we saw him last time we saw him. Like before this sequel trilogy, he was at Cardati, so I'm sure he's got some nice little. The bastard's got some bastards running around somewhere. You know he does.
I mean, that's why she probably sent away her friend. I forget her friend's name, but because she didn't want her to be used against herself anymore.
Possible. She was like, I can't stand, I can't stand Juzal anymore, so I'm going to have to send my lover away or risk Galacta's wrath. Yeah. What else? Okay, so let's talk about the politicking a little bit. I think it kind of it got to a head during the Wetterland trial when Leo stands up and makes a fool out of himself and is thrown out by Gost, and Orso thinks he's going to make this nice move, and Isher totally outsmarts him. I thought this set up the action for the rest of the book really well, because it put the characters at odds to the point where at the very end of the book, when they actually were, I mean, they weren't physically fighting, but they were once again trying to outsmart each other. Of course, Orso is going to take the cake there, and also with Gost throwing Leo out of the council chamber. That was fun to see.
How awesome is it that Gore's, all these years later, he's still like the baddest knight in the planet? That's just so awesome to me.
Him and Shivers, right? The two guys from the Heroes and other books. They're still the top dogs pretty much in terms of fighting.
And you know it's inevitable those two are going to meet up eventually. It's got to happen.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the Heroes, he's like, oh, never heard of him, stuff like that. But I still keep thinking, we never got that Shivers Logan fight, so I still think we're going to get this one somehow.
Yeah, and they're both in like their 50s now, right?
And still kicking ass. Yeah.
It's even mentioned that I forget whose viewpoint it was, but they said like Bremer, even in his 50s, is still practicing swords. Swords like 3 hours a day or something crazy like that. He's not going to die easy.
I'm curious. I don't listen to audiobooks, but Joe makes sure that Gorse has a really girly voice. So what does that sound like on the audiobooks? Does he really play that up? Because I've heard this guy has a million voices or something.
Kind of like that.
I was imagining like Minnie Mouse or something when I read his dialogue. I don't even know what to think. So you're the baddest knight in the planet, but yet you have the voice of a prepubescent girl. That's excellent.
I think,
Mike, you need to check out the audiobook and just at least listen to a sample of it, because Stephen Pacey, I think, is my favorite audiobook narrator. He does such an amazing job. Just listen to Galacta talk. It's amazing.
I've listened to the samples of Galacta talk. Yeah. One thing that I've said that I do here with me, it's not I'm not against audiobooks or something. It's just I have like no problem reading, but listening ADD. It comes when having kids. You start learning how to block out noises, and you just can't turn that off. So I have a hard time listening. But I've had people, hey, listen to this, just see what you think. And what I liked what he did with Galacta is when he was actually speaking, he'd have the lisp because he doesn't have any teeth. But when he's actually thinking, his voice is normal. I thought that was a really neat take on it. So I'm amazed this guy doesn't get more work as much as people will just carry on about him.
I think he's also an actor, so maybe he only agrees to do Abercrombie books. I don't know. I haven't heard him narrate anything else.
If I was an author and I had a book that needed to be narrated, I would try and get Stephen Pacey.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
I feel like I know the story so well now. I should probably just try to listen to those.
Yeah. Do it on your reread or something, because you don't have to pay attention to every word.
It's a good plan.
Okay, so we already talked about the Dogman funeral, so I think we can pass over that event. I think that kind of takes us through the majority of parts 1 and 2 events. So let's go into the last part and talk the final conflict. So there's obviously a lot here, right? The action was pretty much nonstop over the last at least 150 to 200 pages. For me, the Liar chapter really stood out in the lead up. And then obviously the whole fight, the revelation that Rika was taking Carlian, and then finally like the showdown between Leo getting tricked by Orso, the cavalry arriving at the right part, the whole battle falling apart, and the little people chapter there. Like there's so much here to like so much good in this terrible stuff that's happening. So what stood out for you guys and all of that? Like, what I guess, was it just the entire thing? Was there anything specifically that you really remember?
I think for me, one of the biggest things is, and this was obviously going back to the first. Well, first was the whole prophecy thing, because it's so funny when people say, "Hey, Mike, sell me on First Law," and I say, "Hey, it's really if you like A Song of Ice and Fire, but you want it without the dragons, without the prophecies, I think you'd like First Law." And then, of course, this first book lays down a prophecy, which I think you want to talk about a little later, the whole owl thing. But I think just who was the Weaver was obviously a big question that had left in the first one. And when Galacta just all of a sudden up and resigns, I said, holy shit, he's the Weaver, isn't he? I thought for sure, because I think they'd actually even mentioned that it was a bald guy one time. So I'm thinking he made a point to reference how he was just so bald now. So I don't know. That really kind of threw me for a loop at the very, very end. And that's probably the biggest thing for me is that Pike, a character, Salem freaking Ruse from the very first torture scene, the very first book, is like this big time player now, one of the biggest. And much like Vic, I think he learned from the master, right? They both served Galacta. They didn't serve the Union. They both served Galacta. And that's just the biggest revelation in this book for me.
There were a few hints and a little hatred that looking back, it's like, oh yeah, it totally works because Malmer, I think was the dude's name, that the head breaker was about to say something, and then Pike came in and stopped Vic's interrogation. But what he did say, it was like, oh, the Weaver was there, but I never saw his face. And so, like, obviously, if you'd seen Pike's face, you know who he is. It fits. It was a great reveal.
Yeah, and sorry, did you mention when he talks to Vic and he says something about, like, I know since you were in the camps that I know kind of what you experienced, and so I know you pretty well. He says that at the beginning, or maybe towards the middle of book one. And so you're kind of thinking, oh, like, what did he mean there? But then by the end, now you realize what he was hinting at.
And isn't it so ominous that the book ends with the Valentin bulk, the new office, the rebuilt office in Valbec going up in flames? Like, eventually Baez is not going to stand for this.
Yeah.
It's like I finished the first trilogy. Here's the thing. When I first read that first trilogy, I wasn't used to grimdark. So that ending completely kicked my ass. I'd never seen a thing where basically the bad guy wins, right? I had never seen that before. And I was like, at the time, again, like I said, I was young and innocent at this point. And I said, I don't want to read these standalones if it isn't going to be about Baez getting his. And now here we are, one book away from the end of the sequel trilogy. And I'm like, I can't wait till Baez comes and kicks you guys' ass.
So you're legitimately cheering for Baez? Like, what if Baez loses at the end?
I think it's just anytime I'm going to get some of those original trilogy characters, I'm there for it. But I have some thoughts about Baez if you want to talk about that later or now or whatever.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Baez. So where the heck is Baez? We know he's off in the West somewhere, like doing something in the far country. I think some of the events of Red Country might hint at what he might be doing. But
I think that Joe has name dropped Cornel 3 or 4 times now in this series, and that is the third of the Magi. And last known location was the Great Western Library. And I think even Yoro Sulfur says in this, he's got business out west. And he actually drops the name Cornel again. So I think we're finally going to see some resolution, because I believe that's like one of the only Magi we don't know about what's going on with them. We don't even know what the power, what their power is. So I think that's what he's doing. And we're going to, if we don't get like a answer for it in this book, if it happens off the page, maybe we'll see it in like a novella or something like that. I don't know, or Sharp Ends kind of sequel, I guess you say.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I definitely think
also
it's
Zacchaeus, right? I think Zacchaeus is mentioned by name.
Yeah.
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 So
is
that his sister, or like?
I think is it Cornel, the sister? I don't remember. Man, it's been too long. Yeah. Hang on. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, the whole all of the Magi is maybe not as clear for me. Like that, yes, that is defined, but it's never the focus of the story at all, which is interesting since they drive so much of the things behind the events. We know obviously in Red Country there's the whole thing with what the old empire out there that's being reformed, and that hasn't really been a thing at all in this book yet. We know Baez is out west, so like maybe that's what he's busy with. But when's he coming back? Why is this more important than saving the Union? He loves the Union, kind of.
That's what I mean. It's got to be something serious for him to be sitting out while all this is going on and while Valentin Bulk is burning. That just to me seems like that seems like it would take some priority, but it also looks like Yoru Sulfur can take care of shit, if he needs to, if he thinks that he needs to roll up the sleeves and get some work done.
The thing about Baez is I don't want Baez to win, but right now he's kind of on the side of Orso and I guess Savine and Leo, now that they're kind of on Orso's side. Who knows? So I don't want Orso to lose, but I wonder if there's going to be a conflict that comes to head between Orso and Baez.
Do you think there's any chance that Baez doesn't win? Like, could Baez be killed, or to his power taken from him, or something, as a government of the people rises up, or something like this? Any chance we get that?
I mean, if you'd asked me this before book one, I said yeah, but now knowing that I've got one book left, I don't see how. And I won't lie, that's kind of just one of my biggest disappointments, is because I'm glowing review for this book. Don't get me wrong, but there is a gripe that I have about it, and it's that I felt like Jazal died under some really mysterious circumstances, and it is not addressed once by anyone in this. I was just like, so you really just buy that this guy who was just fine last night just died of natural causes with Baez sitting right next to him? So maybe they're all just too scared because of Baez. I just thought we'd get something about that.
People care about Jazal 0%. That's sad. Oh man, no, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. I guess I care about Jazal 0%, maybe, but I mean, it was sad that he died. I liked him by the end, but I was fine with Orso just taking over.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, everybody knows that Baez had something to do with it, or at least all the readers know. Who knows what Orso thinks? I'm sure he probably doesn't suspect Baez, does he? I don't think him being him, he would just...
If you think back to a Little Hatred, Orso didn't even believe he actually was Baez. He thought it was just some dude. Remember when Jazal tells him that, and he's like, "What, you're saying that guy actually is Baez?" So I think he's still kind of skeptical about it. And no one listens to Fenry at all, ever, even though she's seen to be the only intelligent one left. Yeah. No one listens to her. She's just as much as Jazal saying, "Don't trust him," and they're just like, whatever.
Same with Black Calder, right? Black Calder delivers the same message, and no one cares.
What I love about Calder in this, where he's like, whenever you want to get shit back under control, let me know. And he seems like the grown up in the room there for sure. So I'm glad that he's up in the hills or up in the mountains or whatever when all this and Carleon was going on.
So speaking of Baez and speculation into the next book, the owl, right? The owl from the prophecy that Mike promised us we wouldn't have in First Law. We do have an Age of Madness trilogy. So who's the owl? I mean, is it just Baez? Like, is it that straightforward? The rest of the prophecy was fairly straightforward.
I thought it was going to be Rika because the owl, thinking like the owl's eyes kind of thing, but I don't even know if she's got that power anymore. She's just using that to her political advantage now at this point. But I mean, I want to think that Baez is behind everything always. So, because I'm not getting tricked like I did in that first trilogy, So I don't see how it couldn't be. I can't think of anyone else unless it's the big twist is that it's Glocta, which I really think that's just stretching at this point.
I mean,
the other theory that I've seen from our Discord is that the owl represents like a group of the people. I think I kind of already referenced this, like the Breakers and Burners coming together and forming some kind of parliament, and this like overthrowing Baez. And to get this to work, we'd also have to have maybe like Pharaoh coming back into the picture and getting revenge on the bald pink. I think it could go in that direction. I'm not sure that it will. It seems like Baez is just going to win again. Frankly, I'd be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah, I said being one book away from the end, I do. I'm like, wow, Baez is going to get off again, ain't he?
I mean, we haven't seen the last of Rika. She's consolidated power in the north. Well, actually, she hasn't because there's still Black Calder out there. But I think, I mean, she has a lot of story left. Maybe she takes back England from the Union. Maybe that could be the prophecy.
All I'll say is I hope this last book is like 700 pages because, like I said, I blew through this in a couple of days. Like I always go through a Joe Abercrombie book really fast. That's not nothing new, but I was just like, there's so much that needs to be wrapped up, not only from this, but lingering stuff from the first series still. That I'm like, that last book needs to be a big old fat boy.
Yeah.
And the good news is it's already written and it should come out this time next
Yes.
year, right? He wrote the whole trilogy together.
He is
Awesome. We
the
don't have to wait too long.
anti-George R. R. Martin. He plans ahead. It's amazing how that works.
It is possible, apparently. Okay, so what do we think Styria is going to get involved? I mean, yes is the answer to that, but I guess maybe they'll just like pop in there and Vitari and Shanked will become involved when they see an opportunity. I guess in the third book, like maybe what I'm asking is at large, like we just see a continuation of the same type of conflict, right? Where people are jumping in when they see gains to be had and people are backstabbing like crazy. Like that's probably not too hard to predict.
I don't think that they're going to actually get. I actually feel like this is maybe him setting up future events. Uh, just because I feel like there's one book left, and I say that because I think back to where I was before they were hanged and before I read Last Iron Kings. I would probably been like, yeah, he can't do this. Then he did it. So he probably can. I think it's just me wanting Styria to get involved just because I love Best Served Cold so much. But what I actually want for another series, not to sidetrack here, is we hear all the time about these lost wars that they have with Styria. I would love to see it like a bridge prequel series about those characters in the 30 years between these two series, just knowing what the hell happened and how did Monster just repeatedly whip the power of the world's ass just so handily. I'd love to see that. But again, I know that's probably just me wanting more Monster. So I don't know.
I don't know. I think Abercrombie certainly set up a lot of this conflict already with the meeting with Jappo and Shiloh and Vitari, them kind of fighting over Westport a little bit, at least politically, and negotiating about Sapani, all of these sorts of things. But I don't know, it would seem a little bit rushed, at least in to take care of this whole Styria Union conflict in a single book.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that, but at the same time, I feel like Trouble with Peace went further than I was expecting it to go.
After I didn't expect a civil war at all. No way. I didn't.
Yeah, but it totally worked, right? Because the action moves along so quickly that you can fit all those things in. I feel like we could get an entire resolution to all of these dangling threads. The thing for me is, as far as like kind of going back to will Baez win or not, I feel if Baez doesn't win, that's Abercrombie saying that he's done writing First Law books. Because without Baez, unless he does something equally sinister, which he totally could, but without Baez looming in the background, I feel like Abercrombie's saying I'm done and he's going to start writing something else. So if anyone knows if Abercrombie said if he's writing more or not after this, I'm going to say the answer to that question will tell you if Baez is going to win or not.
That's a good point. I mean, I hope he continues this world, but I understand if he wants to work on other things. Like, I mean, he did the Shattered Sea between these two series. So I'm hoping that he does continue this world, obviously, because there's still so much. And now he's really just branched out with this newer generation that I feel like you can just keep these characters going. But I'm sure he'll use some kind of time jump or a different location. Maybe he'll finally give us something in the West. You know, who knows?
There's a lot of room in the world to explore more. Yeah, West. Are we ever going to know what the heck happened? Like down in Gurkle? Are we ever going to explore Thond more, which was introduced a little bit in Sharpens? There's a lot here. The world is pretty large, and we haven't seen all that much of it.
So please, Joe, keep going.
Yeah, Joe, if you're listening and you've got this far, we're big fans, and we'll read anything you write.
Even a children's book.
Yeah. So any last thoughts from you guys to close up this one? I think overall we are very positive on the book. I'm guessing you've probably read it by this point if you're listening to this review. But on the off chance that you haven't, go ahead and give it a read. And we are very much looking forward to the wisdom of crowds. Renamed title. It was originally the Beautiful Machine.
The Big Machine. Is
that right?
Big Machine. Your Beautiful Machine or Big Machine, something like that.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like before, I could see why this one was being called Trouble with Peace, but the Wisdom of Crowds, I have no idea what that's supposed to be. So
seems like a mob mentality, you know.
I guess what I'd like to see is is Rika satisfied just like ruling the North, or is she planning to like take over the world? That's because I really didn't really get power hungry from her, so I really don't know what her end game is there. So I think that's probably one of the more confusing things for me. But again, I think that the Union's more weakened now than they've ever been. You know, they had to rely on reinforcements just to survive this battle with England. So she could have boats already in the water right now on the way there by the time the next book starts, if she plans to do that. Or like you said, maybe Joppo's like, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to take over the world.
A lot of ways this one could go. For Rika, seems like her main motivation was revenge against Stour, and now that that's sated somewhat, it seems like she can just live out the rest of her days in peace up north. Of course, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. When does that ever happen with a king of the North? Yeah. When does that ever happen? Oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Dang it! I'm sorry. If you have any other thoughts, go for it. They're flying all over the place right now.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about wisdom of crowds, Ryan, like mob mentality. It's obviously, trouble with peace is saying, well, it's a bit of a backhanded way to describe peace. I think this is the same way with this next title. Crowds are obviously not all that wise. And I think we do have some mobs brewing under Pike's rule here with the breakers and burners. That's probably going to be like the driving force for most of the conflict, I would think.
No, that's a good point. The Great Change. I thought that the way the book ended, I would have thought the third book was going to be called The Great Change. That would have made the most sense to me. But I like where Ryan's coming through with that. That sounds like a good idea. Because he hasn't built up these breakers and burners things for 2 books. And by the way, who the hell is the judge? Did anybody know that? I keep expecting that to be revealed as like some character we know too. Do you really think that's a new character?
She's crazy and she has red hair.
I was like, well, this can't be Vitari because we saw Vitari in this book. That's only the redhead I could think of. I think she's too old to be Eider, so who knows?
I don't know.
Eider would be too old.
We know who she is. Yeah, I mean, the only hint we have about her past is that she was called the judge because when like 2 whores had a fight or whatever, they were brought to her, and she would kind of act as the judge in solving their dispute, right? I mean, other than that, I don't know that we got any other clues as to her past.
And Zuri's brothers are eaters, right? I mean, he talks about their perfect, clean, white teeth like all the time.
Oh.
So,
yeah, there were some people on Discord talking about that. It makes sense. We haven't seen him unveil this power yet.
I didn't have it. Someone on the Discord got a UK version of the book, and it has a short story in it at the end of it. I didn't get mine. But apparently there's some kind of revelation about a new, like they asked this person, what kind of eater are you? And they say, the new kind. And I'm like, okay, well, that's got to be going somewhere. But I just feel like if it was something that was going to be in the next book, he wouldn't have made it a short story. He would have actually had that in the story. But who knows? Who knows? I just feel like he set up her brothers too much for this in Zuri to just be nothing.
Oh man, I gotta get onto Reddit right now and find out where I can read this new story. I want to know what this is. All right, last word from me is I think a lot of times with second books of trilogies, I struggle because it seems like the authors are really just trying to get you towards the cool ending of the books that they've planned out. And the second book, like the plot will drag on a little bit and the characters are kind of stagnant. But there was like 0 of that here because the conflict in this book alone was good enough to be the conclusion to the whole trilogy. And the characters were moving so much. Like it's very clear how well Joe planned this thing. And I thought, I hope authors kind of take this as a blueprint for how to make a trilogy. Make every single book like really streamlined through and have a big plot. Yeah.
I was surprised that this middle book had pretty much a beginning, middle, and end. Obviously you have your unanswered questions, but in most books, the whole war between them would not have ended in this book. It would have carried over into the next book. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it says something about the book that we still don't know where he's going with book 3, right? It's not like a second book that's really its sole purpose is just to set up the conflict for the third book, because we don't know exactly what the conflict's going to be. So
Joe surprised us and say this is now going to be a 5-book trilogy. 5-book trilogy. Do the Brent Weeks. This is going to be this is my 5-book trilogy.
Yeah, we're on board for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks so much, Mike, for joining Phantology. If you want to watch some great YouTube BookTube videos, check out Mike's channel, please. That's Mike's Book Reviews. What are you reading right now, Mike? Like anything people can get excited for?
I am reading the Blood and Bone by John Gwynne. I don't know if people just don't know about this guy. I feel like John Gwynne is like the biggest kept secret in modern fantasy right now. This is the second series by him. I've already read Faithful and the Fallen. This is a Blood and Bone. John Gwynne he's just awesome. Everything that you kind of look for in modern fantasy. But I do want to say not only thank you for letting me come back on here with you, and I'd love to, anytime you guys want to talk about anything, I'd love to be on. But I want to thank you for your Lycanius reviews, because I just finished Lycanius, and I'm not going to lie, there was a lot. I was like, what in the hell is going on? I felt like you guys cleared up a lot of stuff, and you also had a lot of the same gripes that I had of other people. I was like, am I a dummy? Am I maybe just not understanding some of this stuff? And I think there's part of that. I'm not going to lie. But I felt like you guys had a lot of the same gripes that I did, so I really appreciated those 3 podcasts that you guys did. And I know that was when you guys were really brand new, but I've been kind of working my way through your back catalog and everything I've read. And I'm doing your Red Rising stuff right now, which is a series I absolutely adore, as you can see with my coffee mug here. Big Red Rising fan. So yeah, guys, I love your back catalog and everything you guys have done up to here. And anytime you guys need me, please reach out. I would love to.
Hey, love the endorsement for the early episodes. Those were a little less polished. Questionable as to how much polish there is now.
But the content, that's what was important, because again, Lycanius is like, yeah.
Isn't it tough to be a critic of fantasy books? Because man, if you say that you don't like something, someone is coming after you with
you mentioned
100 reasons why that you should like it.
Obviously, a lot of us are either doing Stormlight rereads or catching up before the new book comes out. I made the mistake today of putting my review for Oathbringer and saying that I have gave 3 glowing reviews for these books, and all I said in this one is that I don't like the Lift character. And you would have thought that I just said I don't like Baby Jesus, the way that I got the reactions that I got.
Oh man, yeah.
It was like people were ready to fight, and I was like, I've just said that he's got like 400 amazing characters in this book, and I say I don't like one, and you just don't get it. I'm just like, wow, man. So yeah, I understand those criticisms very, very
Anderson can do no wrong. Okay.
So I've heard. Oh man, yeah.
I'm actually with you. I don't like Lift either. I don't think she's funny.
She feels like she's in the wrong series. She should be in maybe Mistborn, most likely Skyward. I think that she fits like she should be in Skyward. That's just me. Yeah. Sorry, you can't have this crazy, awesome political discussion, then talk about Dalinar's butt for 2 paragraphs. You just can't do that to me. I expect more from Sanderson.
Yes, I'm with you. But yeah, everyone's a critic, especially on the internet. But
I just started reading those preview chapters, and I see that you guys have done podcasts for every one of those preview chapters. So I'm listening to those slowly as well. So
nice. Yeah. We're putting out weekly reviews of those. We're way hyped. I actually just pre-ordered the book today. Ryan and I did. So
the show,
yeah,
sure.
We're gonna get our numbered copies. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I got the one where you do get the virtual event that he's going to have on release night, and you get the book signed and stamped, and it just says swag. It doesn't tell you what it is. So I'm hoping it's that Bridge 4 poster that he gave those people for the Kickstarter for the leather-bound Way of Kings. Because the Bridge 4 poster is awesome, even if it has Moash on it. And I'm sorry I'm hijacking a First Law thing. We'll talk about Stormlight. I'm just so excited about the new Stormlight book. I think everyone is.
Yeah, we're looking at that's under 2 months away now. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to a lot of great books. The end of 2020 has been great so far. New Dresden coming next week. I know you've already read that one.
I already finished it, Mike, and I can't talk about it.
Yeah,
I want to so bad.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping into that one. But
I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
So before you started The Trouble with Peace, you said that A Little Hatred has been your favorite book of 2020 so far.
That's right. That is correct.
I want to know if Trouble with Peace has overcome that.
Was it better than A Little Hatred?
I say yes.
I think slightly yes. Man, it's hard. It's like, what's more, a 5-star or a 5-star? I don't know.
I think my problem with the first book was I thought Orso was just like, and I didn't really care for Vic, and I felt like he improved on both of those this book. So,
I thought just the fact that the second book in the trilogy was so amazingly hit it out of the park. That's gonna bump it up for me. So I'm gonna say yeah, best book of 2020. so far.
Wow. All right.
Hopefully,
Do you guys read Poppy War? I think Poppy War comes out the same day as this new Sanderson book, the third one in that. But that just
It
seemed like the
does.
publisher setting someone up to fail. I mean,
what
let's
a
put you
bold
against the
release date.
biggest fantasy
Yes.
release. Wow.
Yes, I have read the first one. I haven't read Dragon Republic yet, but I plan to. But yeah, it turns out Rhythm of War is going to take priority. But I do plan on reading The Burning God, the third. Yeah.
Yeah, so November is just nuts. November, December. I think guys are interested. Ready Player 2 comes out that month as well. So it's just like, what a busy month.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get my PTO requests in right now. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks again, Mike. Really can't thank you enough for your endorsement and for your time here. And if you like Phantology and if you like Mike's book reviews, please check us both out on the internet. We have a lot more content past this, really anything in fantasy. Maybe between the two of us, we've probably covered most of it, at least most of the modern stuff. So thanks for listening, and we will see everyone next time.